Wow, the smell is so strong from these guys. I hope you can see them, but they're really busy at the moment. There's a lot collected at the entrance, a lot of bees and then foragers coming and going, bringing back nectar and pollen. They've been in here about a week and I moved them in here from a smaller box which holds 5 frames, and this is a frame, and this is what they build the honeycomb on and store all the nectar in, or lay their eggs in, do everything. This is what makes up a beehive. And this is a really special colony because it's the first bee colony that I actually caught in a swarm trap, if you want to call it that. I put out a box for them, hoping they would move in, and some bees went and checked it out, and then the whole colony moved in. And I actually witnessed it happen. It was like a super special moment. But things have been pretty slow in terms of flowering, and it's only just recently that the bees have got really busy and started to fill up that original box that they were in. So since putting them in this new box, I've added an extra 3 frames. So I'll be curious to see how much of those 3 frames they've filled up in the last week. And then I'll be putting, either way, whether they've filled up a lot or not, I'll be putting this underneath them, this box. So there's a base, a box, and then a lid. I'll take the box and the lid off, put this new box on, and then put that original box on top. This is called nadiring, and I do it because I believe it produces a better quality honey. It's also better for the bees, less stressful. If you're putting all this empty space above them, they're gonna, all the heat, which they work so hard to maintain for all the baby bees and the eggs, the larvae, they got to keep it consistent temperature. And if you put all this empty space on top, all that heat's going to escape. So then they'll be working really hard to fill up that space, which beekeepers that want to produce a lot of honey like. But if there's not the appropriate amount of resources in terms of forage available and fuel for them to do all that work, produce all that wax, so much wax, especially for a natural beekeeper like me, I get them to build their own comb, then yeah, that's going to be really stressful for them. So put it underneath them. But the main thing that this does, and that I'm looking for by doing this, is it prompts them to build downwards when they need to, which is what they would do in nature. If you imagine a tree hollow, sort of maybe a similar shape to a couple, 2 or 3 boxes, they start at the top and build their comb and then build down. So they have their brood, and then as the brood, the larvae, the baby bees, they hatch out, they actually build more comb, and then the queen lays new eggs further down the comb. It's all the same pieces of comb, but they just extend downwards and expand as they expand through the season, and there's abundance of nectar and pollen and all of that. And then they store honey above, and that kind of follows as more and more bees hatch out and the queen keeps laying and they build more wax. The brood is moving down, and then the honey is getting stored on top where there was once brood. And in the brood area, you have all elements of the hive, all bee products. So you have the propolis, the royal jelly, the pollen, even bee venom, and there's more that I'm missing. But when that gets then filled with nectar, turned into honey and then sealed, it's a much richer honey than just putting a box on top and then they build wax, fill it with nectar, and then turn it into honey. The honey, it's called post-brood honey because it's wax cells that once had brood, all these other hive elements, and then turned into honey. But those other hive elements, traces of those bee products get left behind, and then that gets mixed in with the honey. And that's what I'm going for, because that's what makes honey so nutritious. It's all those elements, especially bee pollen. This is protein for the bees and can be for us. A lot of amino acids we can take advantage of there. Antioxidants, minerals, vitamins, even B vitamins. I just learnt that recently, which is amazing. So, that is how you produce the most nutrient-dense honey, and that is why I'll be putting this box and using this method called nadiring. Typically, people do this with a Warre hive. Everything was a bit rushed. I'm using the Langstroth boxes here, which natural beekeepers some of them don't really like using for different reasons. But you know, I've also got a top bar hive which we could check out. And next season I want to build some hives of my own. The main thing being probably a box similar to this, but just thicker walls so they're well insulated through winter. We'll see how these bees go, you know, after summer and over winter. But I'm gonna get some gloves on, put this on, and then get this on as safely as possible in terms of not squishing any bees. That is the goal. Actually, first let's have a look at those frames and see how much they've built in the last week. I'm just hoping that this lid isn't full of honey because I've like taken too long or something. Nope, it's fine. Wow, it's definitely full though. They've built out like the whole thing. There's not much going on this frame. A lot of pollen, some nectar. So that's the second one I put in. I put in 3. That's like 2/3 full. These guys love cross combing. It's pretty ugly. Well, not ugly, but messy. Cross combing is when they build wax across multiple frames at once. I think all of them are cross combed. It smells divine. I'm gonna put these guys back in. So I think the best way to do it, they're getting slightly frustrated, which I can understand. Now let's try and do this as swiftly as possible. Okay. They'll be very confused. And now they'll be like, okay, not so bad. We just have more space. You got an upgrade, renovation, huh? I think that was a big success. So all the bees that are quite visibly productive, I am giving them room to expand into. In this case, it's a box underneath them, and then I'll just let them do their thing until the end of the season and do one big harvest. Of course, I'll keep checking on them, but I don't think I'll have to add any more boxes to any of them I don't know. I really don't know. I'm learning as I go. You know, how productive can a beehive be? Can a colony be? Especially these are all swarms that I've caught. So some swarms bigger than others, but they're just like, they're not a full-size colony yet. So they're also not a mature colony. I suppose the queen is a mature queen because the old queen leaves with the hive. We'll see what happens. I'll definitely keep you guys posted. Thanks for watching, guys. Honey is coming soon, but it's not going to stop there because I'm going to travel around, meet some more beekeepers, interview them, work with them, learn the different styles of beekeeping, because when it comes to producing nutrient-dense honeybee products, I think it all comes down to the management. And there's so much untapped potential in honeybee products. Everyone just raves about raw honey, which is so good, and maybe dried bee pollen, which has enormous potential too, also untapped. But without giving too much away, I want to find some of these guys to collaborate with so I can offer more to you guys until I build my own apiary, however you say that word, of decent size. That is how new to beekeeping I am. I don't even know how to pronounce the word apiary. I think that is it. See you on the next one.